You are listening to Pivot Parenting, episode 221, Regret as a Parent and Being a Parent. Welcome to Pivot Parenting, my friend. I am your host and teen whisperer, parenting expert, best-selling author, best friend, Heather Frazier. How are you today? I am so happy that you're joining me. Summer is in full swing. Some parents love it, and some can't wait for fall and kids to go back to school and to have a better, more consistent schedule. What are your thoughts? I actually really like the freedom of summer. Some parents are kind of split 50-50. They like and hate both. For sure, though, my house is definitely louder, messier, and kids are all over the place. But I choose to embrace and love it because I love being around them, and that is part of being around them. Even when this morning I woke up to a mess of a kitchen that happened last night, unbeknownst to me, brownies and hot tubbing and friends. I like to go to bed early, so I was in bed by about 9:30, and they were having a grand time. But guess what? I can choose to be annoyed or upset and still ask the kids to clean it up, or I can let it go, be happy they had a fun night, and be fine asking them to clean it up today. Because even though the thought crossed my mind of just cleaning it up, I did not clean it up. I definitely am going to let them do that. And they did. Shoes. These are a little harder for me, especially as the one person who leaves their giant shoes everywhere has been gone to college for a long time and is back, and now the shoes everywhere are back. And I remember, it's funny because growing up, my grandma lived with us when I was a little girl. She would get so annoyed. She would say, "I'm tripping all over your shoes," because we would all walk in the house and we would take off our shoes and just leave them at the door. And it would annoy her. And I remember thinking, why is it a problem? Like, just step over it. Are you not normal? Like, don't even think about the shoes. I didn't even notice all the shoes there. I just ditched my shoes and ran off to play or do whatever I was doing. I didn't get why it bothered her. I get it now. I have become my grandma. The kids aren't as aware. Adults, though, we are. And we can resent, be annoyed, we can complain and punish, and we can even justify this because guess what? I have almost tripped multiple times on these giant shoes when I'm carrying stacks of laundry or groceries or maybe looking at my phone, and they're just giant and in the way, and it's scary to almost fall. Fortunately, I haven't yet. Hopefully, I never will because of these giant shoes. We can also choose, though, to see normal behavior and lean into teaching instead of getting frustrated and leaning into our more natural, not very nice reactions. Guess what? This has relevance to what we're talking about today because we're talking about regret and our life not measuring up to what we wanted it to measure up to, maybe on our wedding day or when we played house as a little kid. And if you want personal help on this, I get that this is hard work. I've just had 2 spots open up for private coaching starting in a few weeks. You can apply on my website. I have 3 really great ways to work with me. I have drop-in coaching, which is only $37 a month. It comes with 8 hours of open coaching calls, and then I also have 2 private options. One is a weekly call, one is a concierge call, which has unlimited coaching calls. Any one of these 3 options could potentially be available to you, given on availability. The best way to figure out what is the right fit is to have a quick conversation with me, 30 minutes. We can assess your situation, your goals, and what would be best fit. So go to heatherfrazier.com if you are ready to make some lasting changes in your home. Today, this episode is inspired from several conversations I've had lately, and I want to compile them all into one fictional character that I have named Maria. Why have I named her Maria? Interesting story. Whenever my mom, you would call this subtweeting now, whenever my mom could see that I needed a little nudging in a certain area of my life when I was a little girl, my bedtime story was always about Maria. Irony, my middle name is Marie. I never picked up that these were lessons for me that she wanted to explain or point out to me until I had a fully developed brain and I could see that she was totally calling me out on my crap. I always just remember thinking the Maria stories were pretty boring and lame. So hopefully I'll do a better job of making my point, and I'm banking on your fully developed adult brain to pick up on my nuance. But it is along the same lines as messy kitchens and shoes everywhere to trip on. It's blaming our kids, our spouse, the situation for our annoyance or other undesired feelings to the point of regretting the life that we have made with them. Now, the stories of Maria that my mom always told me, I didn't really like Maria. She was kind of a stick in the mud. She was a complainer and a whiner and a crybaby. And sometimes we are all Maria. I have learned to love the Maria inside of me. And I think at certain times we have all been her, can relate with her. We get it. But Maria has a problem. She is looking to past choices like marriage, having kids, not fulfilling her dream career or education or travel plans or other goals, and having regret that she doesn't now have the life that she wants, that she feels like she deserves. She's put in the work and it's not coming through for her. So here are some things that the Marias in my life, including me, have told me, things that I have heard about Maria's sad, sad existence. I wish I would have made more time for my dreams and interests instead of sacrificing so much. And maybe in parentheses, to really ungrateful kids. I shouldn't have listened to everyone around me and done what I wanted instead. The culture I grew up in told me this was the path to happiness. But guess what? I'm not happy. I just want to run away and forget my life. Start new. I've given everything and they don't even care. My efforts are worthless and my life meaningless. I was duped. I can't even find my intuition because I've ignored it for so long. I always did what I should. Get married, have kids, keep on top of everything. And I regret all of it. It's not worth it. People see me and think I'm so put together, but I want to die inside. I also can't show that part of me for fear of judgment, so I silently suffer while looking perfect. If my kids had turned out better, lived the lives I wanted for them, not hated me, maybe I wouldn't feel this way. If my spouse just fit the mold I tried to push them into and didn't have their own ideas, desires, hobbies, opinions that differ from mine, life would be great. Okay. Again, I love Maria. And if you have thought something along these lines, it is so easy to think you're a bad person. Because guess what? Maria also has said, I've never said that out loud. I could never act on any of this. I would be an awful person to leave. I feel terrible every time I think it. I know that I'm awful for wishing my kids away or my spouse away. You must think me an awful person. Truth is, I don't. We've all wanted to run, throw in the towel, or disappear at times in our own special way. This is so very human. Please, please, please know if Maria is relatable to you on any level, that you're not alone, that you are not bad, that you have not failed. You're just human. And also, this is the most basic, underdeveloped part of being a human. Now, we can never completely get rid of this part of us because we remain human no matter what we try. In this life, we're all just human. What we can do is work to see more clearly why we're letting Maria stick around. what it's doing to us, and then going above that primal instinct to decide to embrace it or to choose something different. Because sometimes it is appropriate to leave a situation. Sometimes it is not. But Maria's attitude is not the attitude that we need to make these decisions from, because it will always be to bail, because she doesn't like what's uncomfortable. So I'm going to break down our conversation today into 4 different subcategories. Number 1, why we do this. Number 2, what it creates for us. 3, why we let it stick around. And 4, when to embrace and when to choose different. So number 1, why do we regret our life decisions? Why do we wish that we could run away and give up on everything? There are several different reasons. Religion, for example. We've all heard that scripture that goes something like, raise them up and they will not depart from it. This is what most of us are promised, that if we do a good enough job, that our kids will do what we tell them. That's poison, my friend. Because actually, if you believe in Jesus and the atonement, he died so that everybody gets to choose for themselves. So we can train up a child and they get to choose which direction they go. And they're very separate things. We are definitely accountable for how we teach our children, and they are accountable for what they do with those teachings. It has nothing to do with if we're a good parent or not. If we've done our best to teach them, boom. That's all that we're accountable for. Moms especially are socialized to give everything, to be a selfless martyr. Time, body, giving up what we like to do so that their children can have all of their needs met. And we have to do this to be seen as a good mom. While dads are especially thought to need to provide amply to be seen as a good dad. When we forego what we want to do what we should, and then we don't even get the prize of respect, love, a good life, it can feel like a sucker punch to the soul. Because here we are all growing up that if you're good enough, then you'll have a really functional, happy family. So then we blame the system that we bought into. It didn't follow through on its promises. This is very basic human nature. Our little kids even get this. I did what you asked. Now I want to play or get the new toy because I'm such a good girl. I've earned it. And some things we do earn, but not life satisfaction. Life isn't that simple, even though our brains want it to be in the moment. It's easy when it's 1 + 1 = 2. Do the right things, spend your time in the right ways, have a clean enough house, teach your kids good enough, and get the life that you want. The reality is that we can marry the man of our dreams and he decides to change. Or he hid aspects of himself until after the marriage. Or we agreed to terms and now we've changed our minds and they feel robbed or betrayed. We have kids thinking they'll like us and listen to us, and then they turn 13. And now it's so painful that we avoid them at all costs because they're nasty and we never know what to expect from them. And it hurts our heart when they don't want us to hug them and they just hide in their room instead of coming in and having family dinner. Even though we made them their favorite dinner, guess what? It's not their favorite anymore. Has this ever happened to you? Do you get this? The part of our brain that likes to keep things simple likes transactional lives. So when reality of agency and dimensions to situation hits, it freaks us out. Which leads me to number 2, what it creates when we try to live in this transactional world. It creates regret. Had I known, I never would have had so many kids. I would have not dropped out of college. I would have not married this person. And it feels terrible when we look at our life and we think, I was just robbed of 20 years, that I wish I could have been doing something different. We resent our families because owning that we made our choices, yes, even under influence of wanting to fit in, be righteous, or when our parents' approval was present, there also wasn't somebody holding a gun to our heads forcing us to do anything. Some degree of us thought that it was a good idea and went along with it. Perhaps we'd do it differently now, but we liked the idea enough to do it then. But it's hard to own this truth and forgive yourself or understand yourself for not knowing what you know now. It's in our nature to either oversimplify or overcomplicate things to our advantage of not having to see ourselves clearly and deal with our emotions. We just blame. So blame is another big thing that this creates besides regret. And then, of course, when we're regretting and blaming, we tend to resent and feel very stuck. This feels like an icky black pit of mud and gunk and self-loathing, and it feels awful and helpless. Now, if we check in with Maria, she really doesn't want to abandon her family, but she feels trapped and helpless to do anything about it. She feels very taken advantage of, very underappreciated, and she has created her own jail cell. Because guess what? Maria thinks that she's trying her best. But there are two different ways we can try our best. One is doing busy work. And Maria's busy work would look like talking, complaining, nagging, begging, resentfully doing, or resentfully not doing, but not actually doing the work that moves things forward. She's lashing out and punishing those that she sees as responsible. She hates her spouse and avoids her kids, distances herself from God and her parents of origin because they're to blame for her unhappiness. She's resentful. She's fake to them when she does interact with them. It's all very surface. None of it is actually deep or meaningful. And she feels very isolated and lonely. Because guess what? She is playing the role of a victim or a martyr. And guess what? Every victim or martyr has a villain in the story, the bad guy. And it feels terrible when the bad guy is our spouse or our kids or our parents. Now, sometimes these people genuinely do cause harm. And I'm going to get to that when we talk about the fourth step, when to embrace and when to choose different. But for right now, I want to stick with Maria and her headspace because this is the most important thing to pay attention to. When we stay in a victim or martyr role, it is a sense of false security, a false sense of acceptance, a false sense of safety. Whatever it is that you want most, staying in I'm the poor me and they're the bad guy, this is a counterfeit way to feel how we want, what we think we need. The real safety, real freedom and peace is embracing your wounds and where you're wrong. And then you get the real emotion you're trying to strangle out of hanging on to being right, of not having contributed to the problem, of blaming other people and resenting and regretting. How do we know it's false? Because we can never feel satiated or complete with the fake or counterfeit version. We always need more. It's never enough. When we feel at peace, there's no frantic, hurried need to help us feel better. And the peace and satisfaction and safety is real and it's satisfying because it is coming from within. We do not need anybody to change around us. Maria can have shoes and messy kitchens, and she can choose to not regret having so many little rugrats in the house. She's just happy to party with them and happy to ask them to clean up. So why do we let Maria stick around? Why do we stay in this victim martyr role? There is a two-part reason for most of the bad behavior humans do to themselves and their families, especially in Maria's position of regretting her life decisions. Two things. One, unhealed trauma or wounds, and two, pride. They go hand in hand in like the worst combination ever. It's kind of like putting hydrogenated fat and sugar together. It sure feels good going down, but it doesn't sit well. Now, they can have various amounts of overlap, but these two components are the reason Maria feels stuck in the mire of misery and regret. I say trauma or wounds because, first off, we all have them in varying degrees. No human, especially at our age, doesn't have them. So let's say that Maria's family of origin looks good from the outside. And she has to say nobody ever hit her. She always had food. There was never any like direct, harsh words. But within the walls of growing up, she had to live by her parents' wishes in order to earn their love. Showing that you were scared, didn't think the same as parents, or any other feeling that felt vulnerable was rejected by her parents. She was wrong, she was shamed for that, and she learned how to push her feelings down, how to put up very protective walls. She was told not to listen to her poor judgment, but to listen to her parents and other authorities who knew better than her. This is a really common trauma, especially for women in high-demand religions, unfortunately. So now we have Maria. She's in midlife, can't really tap into her intuition because she's tuned it out for so long. Can't even pay attention to her emotions, because she has such a thick exterior. When I coach people whom this has happened to, I will say, how did that make you feel? And they don't even know. I don't know. Their range of emotions is like happy, angry, sad, and fine. And those are about the only emotions that they're aware of. Anything else, so like, I don't know, it just didn't feel good. And they can't even put a name to it. And it's not a problem. I know exactly what to do in that situation. But that is a huge tell that they do not feel emotional safety in their body. So Maria, she's well-tuned to pay attention to external things, like the judgment of others, the reflection that her kids' choices have on her perceived success and value, and the lack of payoff that she was taught to expect, that she didn't get, informs her failure and opens the wounds of not being perfect and worthy of love. And this hurts. Even if Maria can't articulate it, she knows that it hurts. Shame ensues. The thing about shame is that it freezes us. So Maria can't even move past the wounds she doesn't even see. She just knows that she's failed and wants out of all of it. Then, because these wounds and being human, which being human means having a tendency towards pride, we all have it. And if you think you don't have it, let's start there for identifying pride. She can't share with anyone how she's suffering. She can't show her flaws because that earns her rejection and judgment and withdrawal of love. Pride is the most nefarious, prevalent cause of family strife, and it shapeshifts and lies and hides. But my friend, and all the hundreds and hundreds of people I have talked to, It is pretty much at the root of every marital and family struggle I've coached on, and also in my own life and family issues and my issues. Pride tells us that we're not the one who needs to change, that it's not our fault, that we can't, and that we shouldn't have to make change. They should. It blames the other person and helps us avoid owning our part in the issue. So when you put our wounds with our pride, it's like leaving those two naughty kids alone. It's way worse than one naughty kid plus one naughty kid. It's like a whole pack of feral dogs running loose in the neighborhood, and it creates so much more problems because they feed off each other. Do you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you put two kids together and they're better together. It makes it easier. And some kids you put together and it's like you just threw gas on the fire. That is pride and trauma. And because they are both human issues, and I love you, and if you can't see this in yourself, let's talk, because everybody does this to some degree in varying ways, but we all have wounds and pride is within all of us. But it doesn't have to rule our decision making and how we behave towards ourselves and towards our family. We just need to be dialed into it, be aware of it, learn the skill of recognizing it so that we can direct. Now let's look at Maria. What would letting go of pride look like in real time for her? Because I know I've been talking a lot about kind of these more obtuse theoretical ideas. So I want to give you some examples of how Maria could step more towards reconciling her wounds that she came by honestly. She didn't get to choose her family or how they behaved toward her. She just had to survive. And so we can love her and have a lot of compassion for her. And then the pride, which is the human condition. By telling the whole truth. That's what it can look like when we let go of pride and wounds. She can choose to get married for reasons she liked at the time. She can embrace that. She chose to have the kids she had. She chose to let go of certain things, her time, her interests, portions of herself, for a purpose that she found worth it at the time. She saw the world and her life differently than she does now. And that she is the one choosing how to see herself, her spouse, her kids, her life as she is seeing it right now, with the regret and resentment and anger. That she is choosing a skewed, incomplete, and with an agenda of playing the victim or martyr to get out of doing her portion of healing. That she really can leave. While she can't avoid the consequences of leaving, my friend, divorce, deciding that you don't really want to be a part of your kid's life, these are real choices that you absolutely can make. When we think that we cannot make them, then we feel trapped and we don't behave very nicely. So Maria needs to own that she is choosing to stay and that that is a choice. She can acknowledge that she has wounds, that is her work to heal, to acknowledge, to understand. That seeing her family as her perpetrator is protecting the worst parts of her and inhibiting the best parts of her from growth and fully loving herself and her family out of a misguided belief that it's safer to stay in her victim and martyr position. This is a really, really common one. I want you to imagine for a moment that you're in a car or a boat and there's a steering wheel. And the person trying to direct that boat or car is white-knuckled on the steering wheel. And it's just a wild ride, man. There's bumps and turns, and this person is white-knuckling it. And they're trying to and they're trying to turn left and they're trying to turn right and nothing's working. And then you look and you're like, oh, that's because what you're white knuckling holding on to, that steering wheel that you think is your lifeline, it's not actually attached to anything. It's just like a dummy steering wheel. And you're holding on to it for dear life, and it cannot give you what you need. It cannot direct your life. It is not providing safety for you in any respect. That is holding on to the victim martyr role. You think it's your lifeline, but it is actually your death sentence. Let me repeat this for you again. When Maria sees her family as her perpetrator, she is protecting the worst parts of her, the parts that do not provide what she wants in life, and inhibiting or stopping the best parts of her from growth that allows her to fully love herself and her family. And it's out of a misguided belief that it is safer to stay in her victim martyr position. Yes, it is uncomfortable to say, I was wrong. I did this poorly. I could do this better. I am difficult to deal with and I am sorry. I am trying. Please be patient with me. Please point out how I could do better. Your input and your feelings matter. But guess what? Being Maria, where she's at, also feels terrible to everyone, including her. And it keeps her stuck in that position, white knuckling it onto something that does not provide what she wants. So let's talk about number 4, when to embrace and when to choose different. So if you find yourself in a similar boat to Maria, you have to ask yourself a very difficult question. And this is a question that you do not want to just give the right answer to. It is a question that you need to search in your soul and make sure that you really own your answer, because it's only relevant to you and nobody else really matters. It also informs how you want to spend the rest of your life and the kind of impact you want to have on your kids and their kids, your great-grandchildren, and so on down the line. Because Maria learned these bad habits from her family of origin, and she has the ability to either break the cycle or pass it on to her kids. Maria is a very powerful woman in this situation. So she has to ask herself, and I invite you to ask yourself, do I want to sit in this familiar discomfort? And there is some peace in familiarity. I'm not going to discount that. That is creating pain for me and my family. And that pain will eventually end in perhaps divorce, my kids not loving, respecting me, wanting me in their life the way that I want, and I become the perpetrator. And I am passing down the dysfunction that I came upon honestly, that was given to me, that I didn't ask for. Or do I want to embrace the discomfort of humility and healing? My friend, it's going to be hard either way. But also you can't avoid it. No decision is a decision to stay in the victim or martyr role. Blaming, hating, resenting, this feels awful. So does acknowledging our part in the situation, healing our wounds, listening to and offering to help correct the wounds that we have put on our spouse and kids, having hard conversations, learning to love unconditionally and accepting that others may not choose to forgive, letting go of the illusion that we're so powerful as to choose our kids' paths, and essentially growing up emotionally and spiritually. This is hard work. It really stinks. Can I just say that I have had my kids tell me wounds that I have given to them? And it is so hard to not justify or blame my way out of it, but instead to sit and validate their experience and try to make amends and keep it about them, because it actually is about them and their experience of me. But this question of which hard you are going to choose to embrace is the magic cure. Owning that pain is there either way, you can't avoid it. But one pain keeps you stuck, and the other sets you free, is what you have to remind yourself of every time your pride and wounds want to say, yeah, but you did this, or I didn't know, or I can't open up to you about that. It's really hard. My opinion is the right opinion. And my favorite, you just need to fill in the blank, whatever you want that person to do so that life can be happy again. None of that. That's pride trying to find its footing, because pride is lazy and wants you to always be right so that you never have to do any of the emotional heavy lifting. But my friend, this is causing you to be the emotionally underdeveloped one in the situation. It makes you weak. Once we have answered this question, once we have chosen the hard and the pain that we want to embrace, either the known familiar pain that is resentment and regret and anger that doesn't lead anywhere good, or the one that is more self-reflective, where we acknowledge our wounds, how we're contributing to the situation, what has been done to us, and how we can heal that promotes goodness and the relationship that we actually do want. That is the steering wheel on the boat that's actually attached and you can actually drive and navigate and maneuver. Then we can decide when we want to stay, how we want to behave, and the relationship that we want to establish going forward. But we have to decide which kind of pain we want to move forward with before we can make that decision. Not every marriage is meant to last. Not every relationship with your kid is going to be a close one. But when you're behaving like Maria, it's really hard to see. And that's actually when you have true regret, is when you act out of the anger, hatred, regret, and behave in ways that are not in aligned with our highest self. My friend, I have curated the exact steps that took me years to figure out and fine-tune. They're actually the 9 steps that I share in my book, How I Fixed My Teen. And they are, number 1, understand expectations and how they're affecting you and your family. Number 2, love all of yourself. This one, a huge portion of this is healing trauma and wounds and accepting and loving all of ourselves. Number 3 is embracing humility, which means we stop judging and enjoy being wrong. This one is where we let go of pride. Number 4 is tossing unhelpful social norms. This one builds on the first 3. We definitely need to be working on healing our trauma and letting go of pride before we can toss unhelpful social norms. Number 5 is untangling yourself from your kid. This means that if they're getting high, if they're sending sex, if they're doing things that you really hate, you can allow them to make that choice and not think that you have failed. Which leads me to step number 6, owning that you are a good parent. When you believe you're a good parent, guess how you act? Like a good parent. When you believe that you don't want to be there and you should have never had this many kids and you shouldn't have ever married their father, you do not behave like a good parent. Not as good as if you own that you made all the choices and you're sticking to them. Which leads me to number 7, don't be a victim or a martyr. These roles that I've been talking about are the most helpless, powerless, lack of confident roles that you could choose, and it is a terrible position to parent from. So we need to give up those roles and step into our power, find our confidence. And then number 8, adjusting our pack, which means that we don't do all the things all at once, which culminates in the 9th step, the final step of reaching emotional maturity so that we can choose exactly how we want to see and approach every aspect of our life. This basically, my friend, makes you idiot-proof to learn and foolproof to mess up. It is a magical process. If you want way more details on all 9 of these steps, I have a chapter for each one in my book, How I Fix My Teen. You can try out the first step, what we've talked about here today. These steps definitely go in order. This is also the exact process I walk my clients through. Please grab a call, grab my book if you want more details. You can do both of these things at heatherfraser.com. And if you want a signed copy and a bookmark and me to send it to you because that's super fun, you can get my book on my website, heatherfraser.com. It's also available on Amazon, Audible, Libby, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, wherever you like to get your books, it's there. And it's helping so many parents. But my pivot that I want you to really think about this week is the kind of pain that you want to parent from. Please, please, please do not let it be Maria's pain. I know that it's hard to embrace being wrong, to trying to see your wounds. This is a really hard thing to do on our own. So again, I invite you to jump on a call with me. We can talk it out. See if you're a good fit for one of the 3 ways to work with me. I'm sorry this episode is a little bit longer. It's something that I feel very passionate about. And of course, shout out to my mom for the Maria stories because she's a legend. And even though I didn't like the stories, I hope mine wasn't as boring and maybe a little more valuable to you today. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you next week.
Heather is the one, an expert in the field. She knows her parenting stuff, including how confusing it can be. You've tried it all, and it's a lost cause. Crying in the closet 'cause you failed at being a mom. But think again, there's peace around the corner, and there's hope in your hands. Your kid just wants your love.